Sorry, just give me a few moments. I'm going to uh, get right to us now. Seems to be having a brief of connection issue, so but it will be resolved in a moment. In a moment to be resolved. I'm going to let me just bring up my slide.
I'm going to talk about the focus of our course, Mastering Python for Beginners in Data Science. So, let me explain what kind of areas in this book.
So I think you should be seeing my screen now. My screen should be off, should be up right now. So if you are seeing my screen, just kindly comment so that I'll be sure that my screen is up. Okay. Just hold on. I'm going to quickly check up something now. All right. This is just switched to a new streaming platform. So, all right. This is just switched to a new streaming. So, this should be my screen now. I believe that my screen is up now. So, I'm just going to start right away. This is the training. We are looking at research capacity development webinar. Sorry for actually starting up late. So the what we are looking at today, we are looking at effective article writing, but we will first and foremost focusing on article reading and paragraph development. What make up a good article? Safe to say is usually when you have a very good um, when you have um, a good paragraph. And for you to develop a good paragraph, you must be able to read the article you are getting those paragraphs from. To You must understand that article first and foremost, and you must also be able to effectively summarize that article. So if you are not able to summarize that article, you might actually have an issue developing that article into into a rightful article to say. Through it's very essential for you to be able to develop the article into that. So is an important aspect of research that you must learn, and it does not just come like that. It has to be through practice. and through other means. So basically, we're going to be looking at that. Then I want to foremost want to disclose that the some of the content from this training was actually gotten from the training I myself attended from a consortium for advanced research training in Africa, KETA, and also make possible by Frontier Lead Consulting and Research Hub Nigeria. So basically, now what when we talk about research, an article or academic paper, the first question that must come to us as individual is what is research? What is reading academic paper like? For some of us, if you can see this screen, you're going to see that this guy have a lot of articles that he needs to read. It's just like, for example, looking at you having an article over 1,000 article, research article that you need to develop an article from yourself. Looking at this is going to be essentially impossible just with what is there. You must have a skill to be able to summarize your article effectively for you to be able to actually understand what type of article, the article that is effective, that is necessary for your kind of study. But I must tell us that reading academic paper generally is overwhelming. To be able to effectively master that aspect, and it does not just come one day. It comes as a result of development. It comes as a result of consistent. It comes as a result of practice. So that is why we actually put together this training. Now, learning outcomes. What do we aim to achieve after this training? Our aim of this training is basically that those who participate in this training, we know the structure of an article, we acquire skills on how to read and understand scientific article, be able to summarize academic writing, and be equipped on how to write good paragraphs. So, put good paragraphs. So these are the outcomes. At the end of this training, we believe that each participant would have been able to actually would have learned or acquire some of the skills in this aspect. Now, generally, the structure of scientific article, we have usually have titles, then we have authors and affiliations. That's why most times when you, I'm going to project to us to see an example of that. Then you see authors and affiliations, you see abstracts, you see keywords, you see introduction, background, as the case may be. Now, the abstract is actually a summary of everything about that article. So most times, that is why an abstract have to be well written, because once uh, a title of an article is also very important. Once a title of an article is inviting, then the next thing that the reader want to do is to go to the abstract, want to see the overall structure of the abstract of a very good work is not well written. The reader may not be move to very important. Article search to search out article most times are the keywords. So if your study is in area of, for example, HIV, and your keyword does not capture that, when someone is doing a research and is looking at that aspect, that Even when the person types HIV into not come up because the key study was background. This actually give an holistic method may not come in, the result may not come. You just have a general overview, then the specific discourse of the topic or the topical issue that you are actually looking at that particular session. Then now, approach to reading through articles. Now, for you to be able to read through article, there are actually approaches that you need to you have to acquire. One of the first that approach that you can use to read through article is the best eye viewing reading. Now, this is just like skimming through the article. You just skip through the article without actually doing an in-depth uh understanding. The reason for this is because you want to know if the subject of that particular article is connected or is related to your area of study, so that you will not waste so much energy actually reading through that article. Then you highlight any unfamiliar terminology. You okay, first and foremost, you make no effort to understand the content at that particular stage. You are not digesting the content of the article at this stage. What you just want to do is just to highlight any unfamiliar terminology that is used in that particular article, that you may write down, to that you're going to research on uh, uh, regarding to that particular article. Then the next one is that you do holistic reading. Then in holistic reading, generally what you do here is that you read the sections, the paragraph, to identify the main idea. Now, in this particular session, what you are doing is to actually identify what is the idea of this paper. Why is this paper actually written? Does this paper connect with my own kind of study? Then you identify the denser parts that are more difficult to read. This is where, for example, I'm reading an article. Then the next thing that I want to do, after I've actually read calmly and pause from time to time to check the aim of the reader, because every paragraph usually have a message that is being sent to public or to a specific group of people that are related to that article you are writing. For example, when you are writing about HIV, or let's say pharmaceutical interventions in HIV, you know that you're actually talking to the clinicians and the pharmacologists or the pharmacists. Then you must be able to actually drive your reading in your right up in that direction. But you, as a reader that is reading the article, then you pause and look at the idea of every paragraph. Then the next thing that you have to do is to identify the dense parts that are more difficult to read. Now, for every article, there is an aspect of the article that is easy for anyone to read, but there is a technical aspect of the article that you as a reader, or your read or you as a reader, may not actually understand the idea behind the author of those articles bringing that up at that particular point in time. So what you do during holistic reading is to identify those parts that are more difficult to read. Then you underline what you do not understand, so that you can ask in, for example, in a forum or in a discourse, or if you, for example, as we have a research of some of the research we are presently doing, for example, you can bring it up in your different research group, to ask those questions, that this is what I found, but it seems not to actually be correct. Then you can actually understand the idea. Next one is now this is an example of an article. Now we know that presently COVID-19 is the in thing, the main thing that is actually that the world is presently battling. Then, for example, you are looking at herd immunity. Then the next one is understanding COVID-19. Now, just like what I told you, you see the title of this article has. You can see the title of this article. Then you can see the authors. Then the next one is you can see the abstract. Then go down, you see the introduction and all of that. But because this is like kind of a commentary or a review, the next thing that you will see, you're going to see introduction. Then you're going to see this the authors dealing with each of these sessions as they progress in their write-up. Now, if you look at this abstract holistica, is a very short and concise abstract that once you pick it up, you want to know what next. What is actually next? What does the author have to tell me further? But if it was not well written, the next thing is that you may not, it may very look uninteresting, and then you may not even bother going further to read more about what is there. Now, the next thing is that the abstract, the question you usually ask each time you pick up an article is this: is the abstract specific? Is it representative? Is it a representative of the article itself? And is it in the correct form? Because there's actually a correct form that an abstract should take. An abstract should have a background, a little background. It should have the method that was used. Then it should equally have a result. Define the major findings of that research. Then it have a little conclusion and a major recommendation from that particular article. Now, the next one is your background. Now, the background or introduction of your study, as I said, the question you always ask when you look at when you are reading an article, for example, an article that is talking about COVID, then you see that immediately it was talking about COVID, but it jumped in mood from COVID, is not talking about HIV. Now, the question, does the introduction of this article clearly describe what problem is that they were addressing in this research? You know, your statement of problem must actually reflect in your introduction, because that is what is going to give your readers or your audience the interest. They are going to activate their interest or captivate their interest to actually read more. Now, the next one is that, is the introduction relevant to the research that has been conducted? If the introduction does not align with the research, for just like I said, we are talking about let's say herd immunity in COVID, but you are not hearing you are not hearing about the basic things that have to do with COVID-19. Or what you are seeing malaria, you are seeing all of that, but not that this person is actually uh, doing a comparative study of the herd immunity in HIV and that in malaria, but you just see jumping in the discourse, then this will actually cause the reader to lose interest. Now, the next one, does the research clearly describe the purpose of the study? You must clearly state in your study. Now, I'm actually giving all the structure of how introduction must be. It must be relevant. Then another thing is that it must also state the purpose of which the study is being done. Then, does the author cite consistent reference, and are the reference properly interpreted? Because is if your references are not properly interpreted, it will actually impact on the quality of your study. Now, The next one is your materials and method. If you are doing an original research, now did they need or get ethical approval to conduct this research? If the research is actually a human, any research that have to do with human study, it is required that you get an ethical clearance or an ethical approval from either the hospital or the government or the research ethical committee that is charged with that particular in the area where you are actually doing that research. Now, the next one is that are the experimental method described adequately? It's not just to state, okay, I use so and so method. You should be able to state specifically, was the method modified? Did you use it verbatim? Was there any change? For example, is it that they use normal saline, then you are using another kind of saline? You must be able to actually state specifically what is done, the modification that was introduced to the method you are using. Now, the next one are the study design and method appropriate for the purpose of the study. Now, your study design is very important, because if your study design is wrong, automatically that research is wrong, because you can't use a wrong study design for example, you are doing a comparative study, but you are using a study for cross-sectional study, a design for cross-sectional study. Automatically that will nullify the effectiveness of that study. Now, the next one is have the procedure been presented enough, be presented in enough detail to enable a reader to duplicate them? That is very important. Now, I'm talking about um, a particular study. I said I used the method. So now, was the sample big? That's another thing. Your sample size. These are some issues that you actually find in the method. Now, when a reviewer pick up your paper to actually review, these are some of the questions they will be asking, that they will use to evaluate your research, evaluate your paper. Was there bias? Was the sample big enough? Because if it's not big enough, it cannot actually be representative. Because the reason for having a sample size is because you cannot actually conduct research on every population that is within your study, that form your study population. You cannot study all of them. But what you can do is that you can actually analyze your data. Was your sample size big enough? Because if your sample size is not big enough, what you can do is to take up a risk that the results that you are getting align them, project it should reflect that. But if your sample size is not big enough, there might be an issue. Now, the next one is that you you should be able to actually analyze your data. Was your data duly analyzed? Was what what were the findings of this research? Do the figure tally? That's another thing too. Where the result display in a clear and understandable whether table or figures? So those are some of the things that you should ask, or when you are looking at an article, when you are reading an article. Now, the discussion is that did the author discuss the result in relation to the original problem identified? Because if, for example, you identify a problem, then your discussion you are talking about another thing, then it does not actually correlate, because you should discuss the outcome of your result, identifying them to the problem that is actually being solved, or that is being identified. Based on your findings, you should relate your result to the problem that you initially identified that necessitates the conduct of the study. Now, what were the main strength of the study? You should be able to actually state the strength of the study. This are the strength of this study. That are the strength of this study. Now, you should also be very polite and be credible and sincere enough. You should also identify the limitations of your study, because this will actually form like an angle for another researcher to pick up. For example, I did a research in A, B, and C, and I find C and D, but because of resources, and we were supposed to look at E and F, but because of resources, we could not actually look at E. but I was that because of resources constraint, I wasn't able to look at E and C. Then this will now form the basis for another research by another researcher that might be interested to actually carry further you've done. Now, are the conclusion in line with the objective? Now, this is also very should are important. It's not just enough for you to good conclusion. You should conclude based on your actual findings. Then this will make a very good conclusion. Now, how do you actually summarize a scientific paper? Now, for you to summarize a scientific paper, there are certain things that you must bear in mind because summarizing adequately a scientific paper will form the basis upon which you are going to actually build your own research on because you don't start your research yourself, cite yourself, and finish research with yourself. You consult other literatures. So you must be able to actually summarize those scientific articles or papers that you consulted to make it possible for you to actually they will form the basis upon which you will build your own research that is going to form another research article for another person to also conduct. So summarizing the scientific paper or article is very essential. Now, basically, for you to summarize your article, now the first thing is that summarizing is the presentation of the most important point of an article using your own voice. That's very important. You are summarizing an article, and what you are trying to do is to actually present the important point in that article using your own words base and that will base on your on that's why we deal with reading effective reading of an article to get the ideas that are actually in that research. You may have an issue um, going forward summarizing that article. So understanding of understanding an article effectively to be effectively summarize your paper. Now the next one, the function of a summary. Now it illustrates, support, and consolidate your own narrative. Now that's one thing. Then the next thing is that it also exemplify a perspective, a concept, a theory, or finding that is relevant to your own study. Now, when you are summarizing an article, you first and foremost look at the support. Those is this article supporting my research? It's not just enough for you to see a beautiful idea, but this is not in line with your present study. That shouldn't be your border. You can jot it down somewhere, but that should not be what to be your major summary. You should focus on concept, theory, or findings that are relevant to your own study. Now, the next one is that some most times may serve as example or counter examples in a discussion of convergent and divergent finding. No, usually in discussions, there are studies, findings that you find in an article that support, that are in line, that are tandem with your own study. But there are some that are in contrast. They are in disagreement. They are not in agreement with your own study. So it's actually a good summary that will help you to identify those particular find that will help you to do enrich your own discussion. Now, do to do what do you do when you write a summary? To do when writing a summary, the do's when you are writing a summary. The first one is that be clear about the point or points, as the case may be. You are trying the point you are trying to illustrate or exemplify by or support by referring to the article in question is very important. When you are summarizing, for example, I found a study done by A and B at all. When I'm summarizing that, summarizing the study, I should refer to that particular study. I should refer to the article in question. Then the next one is to be clear about your point or argument. Now, are you in supportive argument? Are you supporting? Is this finding of this article supporting your own article, or your own? Sorry, is supporting your own study, or is actually presenting another perspective of your study. Now, these are actually where what form your justification or your statement of problem, because these ideas or these points of these articles you are looking at will form the basis upon which you are going to be looking at. Okay, based on this and this, this has been done, this is already no, but because of this and this that is not yet no, this is the reason why I'm actually doing this study. Then the next one is decide what to include or leave out in your summary. It's very important that give, summarizing itself is a skill, is an art that must be cultivated, that must be practiced, and it comes by consistent and continuous practicing. So what you do in summary basically is that you decide what you're going to include or leave out in in your summary, because you cannot include everything. You are expected to include the most important aspect of your study, the most important ideas or points that support your study, or that are relevant. Not only just support, it may not support your study, it may be relevant to your study. So you are expected to also include that. You don't only include things that are in agreement with your study, you also include things that may not be in agreement with your study, which could actually form the basis. And there might be certain reasons why they are not actually in agreement with your study. Then the next one is to be selective, but don't distort or misinterpret the author's data and argument. This is also a very important point. Some persons, in a bid to project their findings that may not actually correlate with other authors' finding, they tend to distort or misinterpret the author's data to actually represent what in a research setting or in an article writing. Now, the next thing that is very important is focus. Now, focus is an essential strategy for article writing or article reading or article summary, or generally whatever article you are writing. You must be able to effectively, you must be focused so that you will not, just like when I started earlier, you are looking at the study that have to do with A, B, and C. But because you are not focused, you saw a lot of article, you are now looking at Z, XYZ. But XYZ is not your focus. So focus is an important strategy when you are actually doing a study, because so that you will not divert attention into other area, because there is actually a lot to read. So if you are not focused, you are bound to actually deviate into other aspect that does not really support, or that are not in presence relevant to your study. Now, focus on the parts that are most directly relevant to your research questions. At every point you are focusing or concentrating on an article when you are doing a study, you must be asking yourself this question: does this article support, or is it relevant to my study? Is it relevant? Is it answering a research question? Is it answering my research question? Is it contributing uh, to answering the research question or objective of my, or aim? Only those aspects that add to the context or credibility of your argument or question it. And it's either they support your argument, or they the credibility of does not agree with your aspect of thought does not mean that you will leave out that aspect. That is part of. There are studies that support your that support your argument. There are some that does not support your argument. Now, you as a researcher, ability for you to now find a reason why this may not have for support my argument is what make you a good researcher, and therefore need to be considered. Very, very important. Then another thing is that when you are reading an article, make notes. Make sure you have notes. Use your own words. Don't copy and paste. There is always a temptation for you to copy and paste, but you must try to resist that, because in the end, because you did not write it in your own words, you will not be able to adequately summarize it. So it's good that when you read an article, write them in your own words. Then when you are actually forming the whole bulk of work, then it will be easier for you to summarize it. So that is also a very essential strategy that imbibe when you are summary itself. The first one is to you think, you write, then you edit. I want you to put those words to hold those words. You think, you write, then you edit. And I want us to know that what make an article beautiful is that that is done to that article. You have to write your first draft. Your first writing in any article is always your draft. It's never your final write-up. It's your first draft. Then the next thing is that you do review, you review again, you review again. Sometimes you give to your peers to also to read and review. You are going to be discussing what make a good paragraph in our next session. So you write good paragraphs, then you make sure that your paragraphs are good enough so that there should be a connection, a sequence of event, a storytelling of your write-up. Um, when you are writing an article, you should try to tell a story. You should not, when you are telling a story, it does not make sense when what you are talking about the beginning at the end. Sorry, the end at the beginning. There should be a sequence. You should start from the beginning, tell your story, so that whoever that is reading your article will be able to understand the flow of your idea. So that is also very essential. Now, we are looking at paraphrasing. Now, paraphrasing in your own words. So, for example, I say John is a good man. That's what the article said. I may want to paraphrase. I will say, okay, article so so and so um, uh, says that John is. I will look for another word that could actually, or another paragraph that could, or sorry, another sentence that can actually adequately represent that same statement without distorting or without misrepresenting the initial idea of that particular author. Now, do not copy the author's language unless you acknowledge the language as the author by using a quotation mark. Now, this is where plagiarism comes in. If you are going to use verbatim what an author A says in your own article, you don't even just cite, say, author A says this. What you say you do is that you say author A says in quotation mark, you write that this author B say quotation this. It does not make sense. Now, this will take me to something very important. When you are writing an article, your voice must always be visible. When I talk about your voice, connections, you must be able to connect ideas together, and that's where your own voice comes out in an article. For example, you are talking about, and author A says this, then we say author A say this, then furthermore, in addition, you know, you should be able to, okay, this is what author A says, then but in understanding what author A says, this, so it's very important that your your voice is always uh, is always visible or is always present in your write up. You don't just say auto Uzaire eto, John eto, Okafo eto, Ayo Bami eto. Just no, those are good, but you must make sure that your voice is always being heard in your article. We are going to see an example as we proceed. Decide how you will refer to the article by its method, objective, population, or the credibility, if it's author or journal. Now, that is also very important. When you are paraphrasing, there are several ways through which you can actually refer to an article. If the aspect of the article you are the idea of that aspect of article you are talking about talks about the method, you should be able to state it categorically that the idea that I'm trying to talk about, or that is relevant to this my study, is from the method of this author so and so, is the objective of the work of this so and so. Okay, this author used this population, or the finding of this population of this author A is relevant to my own finding. So this is also very, very or to the article or the ideas of an article based on the session of that particular study that including in your study at that particular point in time. Now, what to avoid in your summary, as we said before, in a literature review or summary, literature review general, when you are doing a their own interpretation. So that is very, very important. That is where you should be able to make your voice prevail, make your voice know. In making your voice know, you're actually interpreting the findings, interpreting the ideas of that particular narrative. So what you are doing is that the literature needs your own interpretation so that it can drive your own narrative forward. So that is very, very important. That is why has been defined in a variety of ways. In another study carried out in Uganda, what this has not, you've not seen, the person have not actually said anything. Yes, not communicable disease has been defined. We are not asking you if they has been defined in varieties of ways. Then choose the definition that you know best suit what you want to get. Is it, for example, if it's WHO definition, suit to WHO by bringing things that does not make, that does not add credit to that study. Now another one is twisting the author's data or argument to serve the purpose of your narrative. That is also very, very wrong, as I said earlier. Now let's look at working with good paragraph. I know most of us are used to this you that a lot of us are a meal like this. You see that there are actually three parts. We have the upper part. The reason why I actually use this as an illustration is that it gives a good picture of what a paragraph should look like. You can see this particular it has the top part. Now, in every paragraph, there are usually three parts of every paragraph. We have the topics. Now, you remember I said topic sentence. The topic sentence of every paragraph should be one sentence. You don't bring two topic sentences in one paragraph. Your topic sentence should just be one. Then we have supporting sentences. Now, your topic sentence should now your supporting sentences in a way give your paragraph. Now we are still dealing with working sentences, working with paragraphs rather. In a scientific text, paragraphs are actually the building block. You know, when you a building is to be done after the foundation has been done, the next thing that follows is that you see laying of block, laying of block, laying of block until that block become a building. That is how paragraph is to an article or a text. Now, paragraphs actually are the building block in the presentation of evidence. Arguments. No, you know, generally, scientific articles work that way. So you must be able to actually work with you must be able to focus on a particular idea at every point in time. Now, the next one is to from a best view eye view, you should be able to every reader should be able to look at know the paragraph in every of your pages. Not that you just write up a whole page without paragraph. There should be a paragraph for every section. Now, another one is that each building block most must be composed so that it advances the narrative. It must have a beginning, a middle, and an end, just like I showed in that presentation, in this presentation. Now, the you start with an introduction, topic sentence. You introduce the main idea. This present the main idea, the main evidence, present the main reason of that particular paragraph and end with your own conclusion. Now, the next thing is that they are links in a chain of meaning. They should be interconnected and follow each other logically, just like what I said. You should tell a story. Your article should be a storytelling in the sense that um, for every paragraph should connect to should be a connection to the preceding paragraph and should be a support to the following paragraph. So it should be presented in a logical format. So that also how we will. Then we just talked about elements of a good paragraph. There must be unity, there must be order, and coherence, then completeness. You see some paragraphs are not always complete. You see topical sentence, supporting sentences, but there is no conclusion. So there should be a unity. There should be just like I said, your supporting sentences should be speaking to the main aim, or the conclusion should be your own idea or conclusion, or to that particular um, idea that you are trying to present. This is an idea, these are the support, then this is your own supporting statement, concluding statement rather. Now, what should what should be the do's for a good paragraph? The first thing is that start a new paragraph to introduce a new idea. One paragraph per one paragraph per paragraph idea per paragraph clearly and clearly at the beginning of every paragraph. Then support your new idea with references and a solid critical discussion of literatures. That's what you present. Okay, I'm talking about the use of PCRO in resistance, in resistance, in anti-malaria resistance, um, in okay, let's take it this way. I'm talking about um, using of molecular technique to detect resistant gene in uh, in plasmodium. That is the idea. Then your supporting sentence should be references of what people has done, what has been said about the use of who has actually done that work. Or that is actually a very big area. Let's talk about, let's say someone have used a real-time PCRO or has used um, have actually used a new technique. Then you've already talked about that you want to discuss the use of this new technique in identifying resistant gene in malaria in plasmodium species. Then the next thing is that you have to talk about who has actually done something related to that. Then you discuss the literature that are relevant or that are critical, solid, critical about that particular topic, topic sentence that you've presented. Then the next one is to present this and this. Okay, because of what ABC have spoken about, then I believe that this is what it should be. Then that should be your conclusion statement. That's one paragraph at a go. Then discuss relevant idea by going into more depth and spending more time on them. Then read the paragraph you have written out loud to make sure it flow properly. Then pay attention to transition into and out of your paragraph. Now, how do you do this? You use what we call connectors. Now, connectors are strategic term, strategic words or or conjunctions that most times are used by researchers to connect an article to an idea or a point of an article or to another in a paragraph. Now, we're going to look at some of those things. Then there are some things that you should avoid in a paragraph. Too long a sentence. Aim for if you shouldn't have more than 5 to 6 sentences in more than one idea should not, as I said earlier, shouldn't try that. Then the next one is that main point is left to the end. That will actually cause your readers to to lose interest. Not beginning, middle, end, no clear internal logic. You are just presenting your argument whichever way you feel it shouldn't be. Lack of engagement with literature or no references. That's also in research articles. You should able to support your argument or your engagement with literatures or references that are adequate, relevant, and recent to that particular area of study. Lack of transition, no flow or continuity between paragraphs. Logic presentation of ideas. Now, common writing challenges. Now, connectors, as I said. Connectors, usually they are transition words which are used to avoid, which are useful to give a continuity and coherence to your argument. For example, therefore, thus, however, nevertheless, addition, subsequently, similarly, moreover, conversely. These are examples of transition words or phrase that can actually be used as connectors. They can help connect ideas, then reinforce a point or idea as the case may be. So these connectors or transition words are actually very relevant when you are dealing with uh, when you are connecting one point of an article to another. Now let's look at this particular example. For example, this is a paragraph. Now, said decision to access services and availability of funds at household level are determinant of timely health seeking behavior. Now, Shestra in Nepal conducted a cross-sectional study and 59 women who felt that men should be decision maker for family resources. 34 thought women, 9.2 so and so, like that. You can see this is actually research that has presented data. To some people, this is a very good paragraph. But let's go to the next. Now you can see said this study has shown that both men and women view men as the core person to make an opinion on resources available even in cases where women might have contributed the resources. Now let's go to this is actually an edited value. Now it says studies have shown that many women are give an opinion on the use of household resources might have contributed their resources. For example, Sharon found that of the 741 male interviewees, 74% said that men should be the main decision maker for the family resources. Of the 90, 959 women interviewees, over half, like 55%, agreed. Now you can see that this is a well summarized outcome compared to this other one. So this is how you can see that he has spoken about, study has shown that many women as well as men, that is like the topical sentence. You can see it. Then it went ahead to talk about um, the support. Then, although there was no conclusion in this, it shows that this was actually well edited. Yeah, this is a good try, but this was actually better edited to present the same information without distorting the idea of the former or the author. So I want to acknowledge these persons for contributing to this present for supporting this presentation. So these were some of the resources that we are going to exit now so that I can see if there is any other, if there is a comment or so. All right. So I'm going to show if there is any question we can actually ask. Thank you so much. So if there is any question, please let's kindly ask so that we can. So okay, I think someone is saying a question. So you can just if you have we thank you so much. George, for thank you so much for comments. Thank you, Ma, for your kind words. Thank you. God bless you. I want to quickly apologize. I needed to change um, the the medium we are using because that since it was giving some issues, so I needed to switch to the one that will be useful for us better. So if there is no question at any time, we can always go back to actually. You can always drop your comments. We will look at it and respond to it appropriately as the case may be. So I want to thank all of us that make it to this session, and I believe that we will uh, we will have more time to do all of this. Then you can also follow us on our Facebook. Follow us on our Facebook uh, pages at Research Hub Nigeria. Can just sorry, you can just also follow us on our equally follow us on Twitter at Research Hub underscore that Research Hub underscore NG. Then you can follow us on okay. I think there is a question here. Okay, let me just bring this up. Yeah. Akanonu Ikechukwu said, he said, going forward from what you said, and what I hear and observe, I'm making one keep keep to this. I think there's a how putting an entire research in his or her own way without abstracting plagiarism. Now, let me quickly state here that plagiarism, you can't have a research paper that is actually 100% non free from plagiarism. What plagiarism is that when you cite when you use an article's word, an author's word rather, without citing that author adequately, or distorting, misrepresenting the information that is actually presented in that um, in that data to support your own work, that which is not actually true. And also in research generally, in when you present your work to plagiarism check, what usually the people or the committee that look at your work look at is that it's not having 100%. Now, they want to check if they will tell you the originality. Most times they will just tell you the originality of your work should be 50%. So meaning that if I subject your work to plagiarism check, I should you should have 50% originality. Then the other 50% may not be your own words. Now, where plagiarism also majorly have role to play is in your result and discussion, because your result and discussion is expected to, if it's not 100%, should be 100% non-plagiarized, because those were actually like your adopt the method of another person, but it should be that your discussion or your discussion or your result should present your own idea of the work. So you may not that is plagiarized. But the only thing is that you must make sure those sessions, for example, your introduction, most times your introductions are not your words. They are words, or they are actually work of another that someone else has done, that you are trying to now present to support going forward your own work. But you should be able to actually put them in your own words, and putting your work in your own words does not actually mean that you change. It's just writing them when you are reading it in the way you understood it. Then write also yet present. You still have to cite the author of whose idea you are actually trying to present. I don't know if that is clear. I don't know if I was able to answer your question. Okay, so I think I want to also quickly announce that okay, okay, he said okay, I got the point. All right. Um, I want us to know that we will be doing our major webinar will be coming up soon. So look out for this space. We are going to be announcing soon. The flyers will be out soon. So this is just be a webinar that I feel that is actually needed for us, especially a lot of us that are developing a lot of article at this point in time in that are having issue actually developing that. So I want to appreciate all of us. I want to appreciate all the team for supporting us for all that has been done so far. So we're going to the video is going to be available. So new persons can go there to watch it as most time as possible that it can be. So I want to thank all of us that were able to join and appreciate all of us. So this will be the end for this will bring this webinar, this first webinar to an end. So thank you very much for joining us.